There we go.
Don't touch. This is Josh for your entertainment. Okay? So I'm gonna have a timer. I just got this online, nothing fancy. So we had our 5 minutes. Time is 4:09. Took me a little bit longer to explain. That's okay. Guys, for our time's sake, I'm gonna give us 20 minutes, so speed read a little bit. Go. Oh, you gotta hand them out. Go ahead, and then I'll start.
Why do you want 5 copies if there's only 4 graders?
In case
Sometimes.
somebody doesn't show up
Okay.
and we have more graders. Every question you ask loud.
This 4 pages of references.
Okay, you guys ready?
I have 22.
Yeah. We got 21 minutes. We have pencil. Do you need a pencil? Do I not have one? Anybody else need a pencil? When you are grading or you are marking on this sheet, make sure that you kind of hold it up so the grader or so the presenter can't see. Okay? Do you have extra copies? You want to start passing them around so you can see what you're.
Oh, wait, one.
That's right. You can pass it around.
Chocolate passes around.
okay, we can talk about it at the end.
I have 3 of these. If 2 of you share, I can pass them around. I mean, both of you. Share, I can pass around.
I'll
set it for
yeah,
20.
set it for 20 minutes, please. 20 minutes. If you have it, grade it. If you're not done, we talk about it. Okay, so then I would say, ladies and gents, this concludes our reading portion of the paper. If you're not done grading, that's okay. We have time at the end to discuss. Make sure you keep your papers with any notes on them. And I'm passing them around so you can kind of see my notes. And then I would say presenters, you may begin presenting. You have 19 minutes and 36 seconds.
Hi.
Make sure that you talk a little louder than you normally would for our viewers at home.
Okay. Hi, my name is Josh Gates, and I am presenting on replacing abstinence-only sexual education with fully comprehensive sexual education. If you turn to the first page in my handout. If you turn to the first page of my handout, so for those of you who didn't get to read my paper, one of the first points that I bring up is that America is currently 72nd.
Stop. Don't talk to them. They're not even here.
Just kidding. So America, as you guys read in the paper, America is currently 72nd in terms of teenage pregnancy. This is a list of all the countries from the World Bank that are currently above, that rank higher than the U.S. in terms of teenage pregnancy per 1,000 girls in the year 2015. And a teenage pregnancy is defined as age 15 to 19. Some countries that I can interest you in could be like North Korea, Slovenia, China, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Uzbekistan. All of those countries and the rest of the other ones on this sheet currently do better in preventing teenage pregnancy than the US does. So we're dead last in terms of not only developed countries and first world countries, but modern countries. So my thesis, as you read in the paper, is abstinence-only sexual education should be abolished and replaced with fully comprehensive sexual education in order to reduce the United States' high rates of teenage pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. So some information on abstinence-only sexual education. Currently, it is the only form of sexual education that is funded by the United States government. And it has received over $1.5 billion in funds since the year 1996. This is on the next page of your thing. It receives its funding, yeah, it's on the next page of that. It's received its funding through the Adolescent Family Act, Community-Based Abstinence Education, and Title V, Section 501, subsection B of the Social Security Act. That subsection of the Social Security Act defines that those kinds of abstinence-only education programs must meet the following 8 requirements. They have to exercise the purpose of teaching the social, psychological, and health gains to be realized by abstaining from sexual activity. They have to teach abstinence from sexually active outside marriage as the expected standard for all school-age children. Teach the abstinence from sexual activity is the only certain way to avoid out-of-wedlock pregnancy, STDs, and other associated health issues, and some others. While this does have some benefits, they don't work at best, and they're very harmful at worst in terms of preventing STIs and teenage pregnancy. So abstinence-only sexual education is a reflection of the socially conservative values that the ultra-conservative people in Congress have that passed those bills and laws. That list of 8 bullet points that the Social Security Act defines does not align with any evidence or public health or social science research. None of those claims are true. They're allowed to talk about different kinds of contraceptives, but not how to use them or how they work or in anything like that. They're only allowed to talk about their failure rates. They're not allowed to focus on the health or well-being, or they do not focus on the health or well-being of the youth. They only focus on just getting these kids to take an abstinence pledge and put on a purity ring. It doesn't include anything about LGBT students or any of their needs. It only talks about marriage as being heterosexual and cisgendered between a male and a female. It doesn't have any information for students who are already engaged in sexual activity. if they've already had sex, then there's nothing in that program for them. It's only for people who have never had sex before. So it doesn't do anything for those students. And it utilizes fear-mongering and shame to get the students to agree to the abstinence pledges. In 2004, the House Government Reform Committee conducted a survey of 13 of the most common abstinence-only programs that are taught in the U.S. And those programs were taught to millions of students in over 25 states. 11 of those programs were found to claim unproven things like a 43-day-year-old fetus is a thinking person. That's false. HIV can be spread through sweat and tears. Also false. Half of gay male teenagers in the U.S. have tested positive for HIV. Pregnancy can result from touching another person's genitals. Condoms fail to prevent HIV transmission 31% of the time in heterosexual intercourse. And women who have an abortion are more prone to commit suicide, and 10% of them are more likely to become sterile. And all of those claims are false, and all of those were from programs that were taught to millions of students around the country.
What was that program called?
That was done by the House Government Reform Committee. So they're not very effective, they're not accurate, and in fact, only 24 of the states in the U.S. require that public schools teach any kind of sexual education. The other ones don't. And of those 24, only 20 require that the information taught be medically and factually accurate. Otherwise, they can just teach whatever they want. So that's awesome. The government has an obligation to provide students with accurate information, including state-sponsored health education. By withholding vital information about these students and their sexual rights, it's a violation of their human rights. They're not going to be able to get this information very easily anywhere else. They're not going to know what a menstrual cycle is, anything about their genitalia, things like that. And the current federal programs limit the information that they can provide to the students. Abstinence-only sexual programs are ineffective. They've been proven through multiple surveys and research projects to fail at reducing teenage pregnancy. They fail at preventing sexually transmitted infection, and they fail at curbing when individuals will have their first sexual intercourse. Abstinence-only students had their first sexual encounter at the same time as the control group, which means that it did absolutely nothing. 88% of the students who take some kind of purity pledge or abstinence pledge end up breaking that pledge before they're married. And so of the students that did break that purity pledge, only 23% reported using a condom during their first sexual experience. So it didn't even teach them to use condoms because it didn't teach them how. And it's dangerous. These programs are dangerous for youth, and they increase teenage pregnancy and STI rates. They don't do anything to help prevent them, which is why the U.S. is ranked so poorly in teenage pregnancy. So the most common solution to dealing with abstinence-only sexual education is fully comprehensive sexual education. According to the United Nations, they have a division of advancing human rights, gender equality, and improved sexual and reproductive health. And they say that a program that's comprehensive for sexual education should contain the following items. It should foster respect for human right and dignity. It should encourage critical thinking skills and young people's participation in decision making. It should nurture attitudes that promote gender equality and inclusion. It should adapt to suit the age and cultural needs of young people. It should communicate a positive life cycle approach to sexuality. It should contain specific scientifically accurate information. It should offer a safe and healthy learning environment. It should include participatory teaching methods to strengthen the community skills and their communication. And it should address gender and equality, vulnerabilities, exclusion, and human rights violations like sexual assault. If you compare that to the 8 topics from the abstinence-only education, almost none of them line up. Scientific research completely backs fully comprehensive sexual education. It's been shown to be effective in multiple studies. Unlike the abstinence-only programs, these programs last more than just a day or even a couple weeks. They last some time because there's a lot of information that needs to be covered for the students to learn. They address issues with peer pressure and how to say no and how to talk about consent, which are very important things. It addresses the characteristics of the group being taught, whether it's age or sexual experience or the culture that they're in. So abstinence only is like a one dip. It's just everyone takes the same course and you're good. But that doesn't work because not everyone's the same because of intersectionality. So by these courses change the way that they teach the course and the information that they cover based on the students that they're teaching, making it so everyone still gets the same information, but they get different pieces that they need to hear more than others do.
And then we're not supposed to ask questions about, what was that word that you said?
Intersectionality. Intersectionality is where someone is of multiple, what's the word I want? Discourses. So like if I'm black and I'm handicapped, I'm intersectionalized because I fall within two minority groups, so I'm more likely to have disparities happen against me.
I think you can clarify that.
So these programs teach all forms of contraception and how effective they are and the proper way to use them because, as I'm sure most of us know as most of you guys know, as public health majors or healthy people, condoms are only effective at their worst 81% of the time when they're used improperly, but they're effective up to 97 to 8% of the time when they're used properly. So they pull out the banana or they pull out the dildo when they put a condom on it. They inform about reproductive and sexual health, things like menstrual cycles that's not covered in abstinence-only education. And they answer any and all of the questions that the students could ask them with medically accurate information. Other abstinence programs, they don't answer the questions, or if they do, they're very loose and very vague, and they leave the student more confused than they were before they had the question. They don't work. Most of the people in the country prefer fully comprehensive sexual education as opposed to abstinence-only sexual education. Harvard University, the Kaiser Family Foundation, and the National Public Radio conducted a survey in 2003. Only 14% of people surveyed wanted an abstinence-only program with nothing else. I'm on, that one. 99% of the people wanted all programs to cover STIs and HIV, something that a lot of abstinence-only topics don't cover. They only just fear-monger and say, if you have sex or if you touch this person, you will get chlamydia and die. 98% wanted students to learn specifically about HIV and AIDS. 94% of the people surveyed wanted people to learn how to get tested for STIs, something that abstinence-only sexual education doesn't cover. 93% of people wanted to learn about, 93% of the people surveyed wanted the students to learn about waiting till marriage. 83% wanted the students to learn how to learn to use a condom properly, which is an important thing. And 71% wanted the youth to know that teens can get, in most states, contraceptive and birth control services from family planning centers without their parents' consent. They don't need that consent, if you're over the age of 16, I think. Overall, the participants wanted the schools to teach about contraceptives and STIs with an emphasis on abstinence only, instead of just teaching only abstinence and not giving the students any of the vital information that they need to be a normal human being. So the federal government continues to fund these abstinence-only sexual education programs despite all of the research that shows that they're completely ineffective, that they don't work, and that most people don't want them. And it's because of the ultra-conservative people that are in the Congress. And no one religion should have a right to force other people who are either not religious or not part of their religion to follow their beliefs or morals. It's a direct violation of the First Amendment's freedom of speech, and it goes against the concept of the separation of church and state. It just doesn't work. It restricts access to needed reproductive and sexual health information, and it's a form of totalitarian government censorship. So there's a number of organizations that support fully comprehensive sexual education, at least 135. Some of the bigger names include the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Medical Association, the American Public Health Association, the National Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy, National Education Association, the National Medical Association, the National School Boards Association, the Society for Adolescent Medicine, and a whole lot of other ones support fully comprehensive sexual education with an emphasis on abstinence as opposed to abstinence-only sexual education. Some further statistics that show that students need this kind of extra information instead of getting false information. 1 out of every 4 women will become pregnant by the age of 20 in the US as of 2016, according to one of the sources I can't remember the name of. 3 out of these 4 pregnancies are not intended before the age of 20. 25% of females and 18% of males did not use any kind of contraception at all at their first sexual intercourse. Teen girls wait an average on 12 months to seek health care services after beginning sexual activity. So they're not using any contraceptives, they're not getting any education, they're not taking care of themselves like they need to be because they don't know that they need to because of the education that they're getting. Half of all new HIV infections occur between the ages of 14 and 25, which is disproportionate to their group. And teens are more likely to develop STIs as opposed to other groups of people. And adolescents, even though they only account for 25% of the sexually active people in the United States, account for 50% of all the new STI infections in the US each year.
Do you know the ages of that?
It's 15 to 24.
Yeah.
It might be.
Yeah, you got it.
Yep. Well, 14 to 25 for
Yeah.
HIV, 15 to 24 for the STIs. Fully comprehensive sexual education lowers teen pregnancy and it lowers sexually transmitted infection rates. Because of this, because it lowers teen pregnancy, people can stay in school, they can get better educations, so it lowers poverty.